We're live in 3, 2.
And we are live, baby. Welcome into Leather Brains. As always, your host here today, Slapdog, and I am joined by a very good friend of mine. You guys know him, you love him. It is, of course, Yeti.
Hello.
Good to hear your voice, brother.
Man?
Welcome in.
Missed you guys last week, but we're gonna have a good episode this week. We got some juicy stuff to dive into, man.
Yeah, we do. We had the last couple weeks, you and I have been going back and forth on some keep, trade, cut type scenarios where we're bringing up we did quarterbacks and wide receivers and kind of looked at their value and decided kind of where we wanted to go. And we didn't do running backs last week because unfortunately you weren't around and we wanted to save it. So you and I could have some in-depth discussion about that. So excited to have you here. We are going to be talking, like I just mentioned, we're going to be talking about running backs today and the meat of our episode. We're going to be going over some running backs that you guys have voted on. So over on our Twitter profile, we put out a poll and you guys picked 2 of the running backs. Got a total of 6, of course. So we're going to be talking about running backs, but that's not all we're talking about, baby. We're going to be talking about Josh Allen. Made the Madden cover. We got to talk about that. D-Hop, where's he going? We talked about him last week. There's some new rumors out, so let's kind of explore that and see if this is or is not a potential good fit for him. We've got, like I said, running backs, and then at the very end of this episode, Yeti, we have questions. We have some cleanup from last week, so we got some questions from all of our wonderful brainiacs out there. We need to get answered. So you ready to do this thing?
Let's get down to business.
Let's get down, baby.
Let's get down to business.
First piece of news, as I mentioned, Josh Allen, it was released today that he is the 2024 Madden cover. He is the first Bills player to ever do this, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how big of a Madden player you are, but this means almost nothing to me.
Honestly, I think the last Madden I bought was back in high school, so it's probably been like 10 years or so. It's just the same game.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could play the one from high school, and if you just get like update the rosters, it's the same game.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you own one, you own them all.
Different person on the cover. That's fine.
That's it.
I was going to talk about the Madden curse, but I think Mahomes kind of destroyed that, right?
I would say yeah, probably. I think that kind of put that argument to rest pretty quick.
Yeah, because last year's cover was John Madden, so R.I.P. John Madden.
R.I.P. Yeah, for sure.
I guess the Madden curse can start all over again with Josh Allen this year.
Yeah. Well, I'm fine with it. I know there's a lot of haters out there that were pretty pissed off that it was Josh Allen. I'm gonna say this, Yeti. I don't give a shit who's on the Madden cover. I want it to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's who I want to be on. I want him not in. And you know what? You could get a Ryan Fitzpatrick from every team that he's played on. It would encompass half the NFL teams, or a third of the NFL teams rather. I'd be fine with that. I think that would be great, and he would be who I would want to see on the cover of Madden. And then I'd buy it.
Who would be a fun one actually is Josh Jackson. Because he's played for 13 different NFL teams, I think, at this point.
Jackson. I'm unfamiliar with who that is. I'm going to be honest.
He played for the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. He was their third string guy, and I think he played in the XFL or UFL. Okay. But he's been in the NFL for, like I said, he's had a 10-year career at least. And he's just bounced from team to team, different team every year.
I'm fine with that, too. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. So congratulations, Josh Allen. Or you know what? Good for you. First Bills player to ever do it. Pretty cool, I guess. It's just another Madden game. Next piece of news. Yeti. We went kind of viral.
Did we?
We went kind of viral this last weekend, which was completely unexpected. Like that was something, I won't say we went viral, but I mean, it was like 2.3 million people saw this thing picture we put up. Yeah, it was pretty cool, man. It was, my phone did not stop going off, and I was about to silence the Twitter app, and I was like, man, you got to think like the big companies like who are constantly just getting pinged at. I never realized how annoying it was, and I was like, yeah, I turned this shit off too. Like a celebrity, like I'd be like, dude, get this out of here. If you're just tweeting you could like tweet, I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then it's just like your phone doesn't stop buzzing, so it was annoying, but. The reason I bring this up, Yeti, is it is cool for us, and that was, whatever. But it was a picture, and I want to talk about this picture just a little bit, because this picture was actually a picture of it was the 2023-2024. So this upcoming season, it was a Madden simulated season. So they imported all the rookies, did all that kind of stuff, and they simulated a whole season. And I'm going to pull it up here so we can talk about it, because we have got the Chiefs winning it again in this simulation. And a lot of people were upset about this. Very obviously, like I said, it went viral, and it went viral for a reason. But a lot of people were upset about this. So Chiefs, they won it all 37-24 against the 49ers. So that is who Madden had going all the way. Now, let's go over this. And I don't think we need to go game by game here. But initially, when you looked at this playoff bracket, I mean, do you think it holds any semblance of reality, or do you think that this is just completely asinine by Madden?
I think it's pretty fun to talk about here in June, right? Because right now we don't have a lot of news that's coming out. We have rookie OTAs, rookie mini camps going on, and that's about it. So I think this simulation is great. Obviously, it stirred up a lot of controversy on our Twitter page, and I think a lot of that has to do with some of the teams that are mentioned here. I don't really give a fuck about the results, obviously, but like the teams that Madden has identified as potential playoff candidates is fun, right? Yeah. Like we have teams like the Browns. That's kind of surprising to me that the Browns would be in the playoffs. We have the Bears and the Lions, so two teams from the NFC North. We have the Seahawks making it in. Like those are just
Falcons.
Fun. Yeah, the Falcons even, which I could see with them winning the NFC South, right? But yeah, it's interesting. It's fun.
Yeah, I as a pseudo Lions fan this season, I love to see that Madden brought them into the playoffs. The Falcons, to me, going and beating the Seahawks and going to the divisionals is wild to me. I don't see that happening. That kind of is a little crazy. But like I looked at this and it was kind of funny. I saw this picture, and so I posted it, of course, and just because I was curious to know what the Brainiacs thought. And I looked at this initially, and I was like, this isn't completely insane. No. Like, yeah, there is certainly some outliers, I think, and there's some arguments there to be had, and I completely understand that. But initially, when I looked at this thing, I was like, yeah, I think a lot of this could actually be, there could be some truth ingrained in it, Like, some of these teams are good, and some of these teams are sneaky good. Like, I think the Lions, I've talked about them quite a bit. I do think they could go to the playoffs. Now, I'm not making any arguments that they're going to win the divisional and go to the semis, but that's like, as somebody who has studied the NFL ad nauseum, I'm like, man, the Lions are actually not a bad team, right? And I do think that unless something goes catastrophically wrong, they're going to be pretty good this year. And you just have someone like the Lions have sucked for the past 10 years. So it's like, yeah, okay, but do you know what's going on with that organization? Do you know that they brought in this person and that they've done this and that they have these new members here? And like, so you can't use history and what has happened in the past as a a template to say, hey, they're not going to make it because they've always sucked. Like, eventually, teams will do things to improve themselves. So that's what I wanted to say more than anything else is there were some things that I found surprising, and, like, this is all simulated, so who the hell knows what's going to happen. But I think there was some truth to the entire picture.
Yeah. What do you think about Madden potentially getting the script early, and this is actually what's going to happen this year?
That would be very controversial. I would say that there's probably some leaking of the script got done, the NFL script this upcoming season. I think there's some people at EA Sports that probably have some connections at the NFL, and they maybe sat down in the writers' room for about 30 minutes and kind of just heard some ideas about what the script writer is going to be doing.
Yeah, that's very.
I mean, what do you think this is? They had the insider ear for this?
We'll see. We'll see next February what happens, right? But what if all these teams here are in the playoffs next year, but the results are all flipped?
That would be the script writers fucking with EA.
They're
Sports.
like, oh, yep.
That would be what it is.
We'll tell you the teams. We just won't tell you the full results.
Yeah, and you can decide it from there, which I think is fair. Yeah. Like they get their 2 minutes of fame, and the NFL, of course, is writing the script, so they know what's going on. Other piece of news. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I had just one more question. What do you think is more likely to happen? the Jets or the Bears make the playoffs?
I'm gonna say, I gotta say the Jets. The Jets had a really good. I mean, if we're talking real right now, like the
real
Jets,
football, yeah.
the Jets have a good defense. They had a good defense last year, and we saw their struggles, and it was offensively and it was with the quarterback. I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is incredible, but I think Aaron Rodgers is still a very usable quarterback and certainly an upgrade from somebody like Mike White or Zach Wilson. So, and he's got all the other offensive pieces. I think one of the things I think about is Breece Hall going to be back healthy? But overall, I look at the talent on that roster on both sides of the ball. I think the Bears are frisky, and I think they're onto something. But I think the Jets have found something, and I expect the Jets over somebody like the Bears.
Yeah, 100%. And it's kind of crazy that Miami is not included on this list. I know it's Madden, but I could see Madden or Miami being one of those sneaky teams.
Yeah, they're another one. They
far
stouted up
in
their
the
defense
playoffs.
quite a bit as well.
Yep.
So I agree with you. Next piece of news here. 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan stated that quarterback Brock Purdy is right on pace, and he, quote, thinks that Purdy throws 3 times a week. However, he does not sit in on these. You'd think he probably knows a little bit more than that. I would certainly hope so. Mm-hmm. When you're in a quarterback battle in the NFL, your coach is probably very aware of where you are health-wise. We've talked about it quite a bit. Now, I don't know if I've necessarily asked for your opinions. Like, do you? I know Alan has been very vocal, and I've talked with Alan, back and forth about this as well as Scotty. You think it's Purdy or you think it's Lance?
Oh man, that's going to be the $1 million question up until opening day, right? I tend to think that Purdy is their guy. All offseason, it's been nothing but Purdy. We're hearing a little speculation about Lance looking good in OTAs and whatnot, but how does that actually translate to a real NFL game? We've seen Brock Purdy do well. He's had success in NFL games. You can argue that the competition wasn't there, that he beat up subpar teams. I get it, but he's still proven it in the NFL. Trey Lance, however, we've seen what he can do, right, for a few games. I just think Brock Purdy runs this offense a little better. I tend to think that Brock Purdy is the guy and that Trey Lance is going to be a backup this year until he gets traded.
So you do think he will end up being traded?
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about it on the last episode, so I don't really want to hash the whole thing out. But I did say I think it would be fun if he got traded, and I've accepted that idea in my head. So I'm here for it. Let's ride, baby, because I'm all in.
I think this is a year where we're going to see a lot of young quarterbacks potentially getting moved. Kyler is another guy that gets put to mind.
Yeah, if the team starts doing really bad, there's a talk of moving on from him, and I'm okay with that. I think. We'll see what happens, I guess. Zach Wilson, I don't know if he'll ever start in the NFL again, but he's another younger guy that might be able to find a new team. Like I said, I think everybody's kind of knows what he is. But it is going to be interesting. It is going to be a really, really interesting season, and I'm very excited for it, as I'm sure everybody else is. And we're waiting very impatiently.
Mm-hmm.
DeAndre Hopkins. He's rumored to have landed in Tennessee, and I don't mean he is signing with Tennessee, but he flew to Tennessee, and his plane landed there. And it would stand to reason that there's a potential that he could be meeting with the Titans?
Question mark?
I mean, what do you I think we all kind of probably share the same sentiment, but for those that are not very caught up on the NFL, what do you think about DeAndre Hopkins potentially going to the Titans, Yeti?
I think he's doing Mike Vrabel a solid here, because Vrabel and D-Hop, they were together in Houston. So I think D-Hop is kind of like, hey, let's hang out. Let's go get dinner. Let's go get a beer. And I think the media's kind of blowing it up. Real life, though, my real perspective on it is, what the fuck, man? For fantasy and real life, it makes zero sense, right? D-Hop wants to play for a winner. He wants to get a Super Bowl ring. He wants to play with an elite quarterback. He wants to be in a good offense. Tennessee is none of those 4 things. So it makes zero sense.
They don't even have a quarterback.
Exactly. I mean, Ryan Tannehill is their pseudo day one, I guess, at this point. And then, what else?
Will Levis?
Right.
Malik Willis?
So this has to be, I think he's going out for a nice date with Vrabes, and that's it.
Don't blame him. Maybe he's looking for that that advice. He just wants the sage wisdom of Mike Vrabel. And so he's like, hey, what should I do here? And maybe him and Vrabel are going to sit down. That's what I hope happens, because nobody in the world expects or hopes him to go to the Titans. So that would be a very disappointing decision for Hopkins.
That might be the worst spot for him to land. Out of all the teams that have been rumored, I think that is the worst potential spot.
Yeah, terrible. Colts cornerback Isiah Rodgers. Let's talk about this for just a moment. I'm actually pretty interested to see what you have to say. He's under investigation after allegedly violating the league's gambling policy. And it sounds like some of these bets were even placed on the Colts while he was playing last season. Biggest, stupidest mistake of his life? Like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah, what are you thinking, man? I get everybody has a little degeneracy in them. They like to gamble, or they like to smoke cigarettes. They like to drink. Whatever your niche is, you do that. You do you, right? But to bet on a sport, to bet on your own team, that is the most idiotic thing you can probably do. Yeah, while you're playing. What's he doing? He's going in at halftime and being like, "Oh, we fucking suck." So we're not making any adjustments on defense. I might as well freaking play the under here, or the over.
Like,
how stupid do you have to be to put your career in jeopardy or sit out for a year? You miss a whole paycheck.
I think he's so. Here's the thing, because we've talked about it a little bit with Calvin Ridley and his whole gambling situation. What are you looking to gain? Because you're already a millionaire, right? Like, you're making millions of dollars and stand to potentially make more money. He's a younger guy. Why? To hit $1,000 parlay? Like, that's what the poors like me wish that happened. Mm-hmm. Like, you have that. You shit that out for breakfast. So you have that happen. And you just blew it. Because here's what happens. How do you, as an NFL organization... You can't allow that. And the thing with the thing with Calvin Ridley, the difference is, in my mind, Calvin Ridley was not betting while he was playing. He was betting on the sports, but he was disassociated from the team. He was not on the field. He was not talking to coaching staff. Presumably he wasn't, I suppose. But it's not like he's there on the field, able to literally impact the game. So and I'm not defending Calvin Ridley, I'm not, but I think that's the monumental difference, because you go in and you look at somebody like Isiah Rodgers, and it's like, you could do the over under for an interception, and he could bet the under and instead swat the ball away. Like, it literally takes away from the reality of the game, or the morality of it. And so I don't think he should ever be allowed to play NFL football again. That's my stance, and that might be harsh. And he even came out and he put in a Notes app apology. So he wrote in his Notes app and said, "I'm sorry, what I did was disgraceful." I don't think that cuts it, because I just don't think that there's any room for that in the NFL, because it literally destroys the game in and of itself. Now, I think like what happens with the Lions players, I think that was stupid. They bet on some other sports while they were in the facility. I think that's really stupid. But to bet on the sport in which you play in the games you're playing in, I do believe that he should never be allowed to play NFL football again.
Yeah, and this is kind of unprecedented territory for Roger Goodell, because, we've had guys bet on their own team. We've had guys bet on NFL games, whatever, but we haven't had a guy bet while they're playing a game yet. So we, like you mentioned, Calvin Ridley got 1 year. What's Rodgers going to get? A lifetime suspension, that's not out of the question in my mind, because who's to say that he won't do it again?
Exactly.
Or he could be telling his buddies, "Hey, I'm not going to get an interception today," or, I'm just not feeling it today. Like, put some money on whoever we're playing.
It ruins the integrity of the game.
Yeah. And so, you can't trust them anymore.
No, you can't. And so that's kind of where I'm at, as far as like, you should never be allowed to play in the NFL ever again, unfortunately. Like I said, I think the Calvin Ridley thing was kind of silly. He shouldn't have done it. And a year suspension, you look at that, and in my mind, he didn't even do anything that crazy. Like, he shouldn't have been doing it, but he wasn't there. You know what I mean? And that was a year. So what do you do in that? Because this is much more severe in my mind. So I'm fine with a lifetime suspension from ever playing again. And I think that also he will be like, if they did that, that would prove a point to all the other players. Like, this is you, like, okay, even if we were toying with the idea, like, we're done with this, because guess what? The millions of dollars that we're making on a yearly basis are not worth this $10,000 parlay.
Right.
So that's where my mind is. And like I said, some might see that as a little harsh. That's fine. I understand. I just don't think Isiah Rodgers should ever be able to play NFL football again. Sorry, Colts fans.
I do think it was funny to see on Twitter that people were trying to go through the roster and being like, who's somebody I know on this roster that is not a star?
Yeah.
And I saw on Twitter people were like, oh, maybe it's Pittman, maybe it's Alec Pierce, because the Colts had just signed like a wide receiver free agent, so they were speculating, okay, it's got to be a wide receiver. They're replacing one of those guys.
I legitimately, there was a moment in time where I was like, I bet it's Michael Pittman, because the report that initially came out was like an average NFL fan has heard of this player, but they're not a star. And I was like, well, everybody kind of knows Michael Pittman, but would I call him like a star, like a Devontae Adams? Like, no. So I thought for a chance there it was, and I was like, that would be crazy. But it ended up being a defensive player for everybody playing fantasy. I suppose they don't have to worry. But for Colts fans, I apologize that you have to go through this. It really sucks. And I don't think your cornerback should ever be allowed to play again. So that's my take. Next up, Deebo Samuel. He admitted that last year was awful for him, Yeti. Could you imagine? I mean, he's so awful. He was out of shape. That's what he said. He said, I was out of shape, and last year was an awful year for me. I would say fantasy players probably agree from where their expectations were for Deebo. But, I mean, really, like, I just think he's kind of getting old. And I think he's in an offense that's very, very difficult for him to consistently get fed. That's kind of where I'm at. So I don't know if you share that same mentality. Do you think Deebo may have lost a step?
Yeah, I was on the train last year that I thought Deebo would be a bust in all formats last year, and I was selling him, I was fading him in redrafts, whatever it took, because I just didn't think that he would have that same volume that he saw in 2021 when he was a running back / wide receiver, right? And he's starting to accumulate some of these injuries, which that can contribute to his out of shape, right? Because it's hard to get it in a groove when you're banged up consistently. You're not getting game reps anymore. It's harder to condition, yada, yada, yada. But, obviously he's getting up there in age and the injuries have started to pile up. But you look at his role in this offense when Christian McCaffrey joined, his role has gone down quite a bit. Ayuk started to get fed more. He's starting to become their wide receiver one, if you will. Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. Those guys are toting the rock a lot more than Deebo. Deebo didn't see any red zone carries when Christian McCaffrey joined the team. And I think it's just hard to trust Deebo right now, given his health. And he is 27 years old. So Kyle Shanahan is very cognizant of this, I'm sure, and he's got to reduce the workload a little bit. So Deebo can be in the best shape of his life this year, and I'm still going to fade him. He
finished as wide receiver 38 last year, and Ayuk finishes 15, just for reference.
And Deebo's the 16th wide receiver going off the board right now.
That's a little too much for me.
That's too high, man.
Yeah, I agree. I would be fading Deebo too. I hope he gets back to it for his own sake. But for me as a fantasy football player, I'm probably also not taking the risk on Deebo that high for sure. And then this last piece, it's not news, Yeti. I found out something today that blew my mind, and I wanted to share it with all the brainiacs as well as yourself. Did you know? And if Scotty was here, I guarantee you he would just light up like the 4th of July, man. Dalton Kincaid, rookie tight end that was drafted by the Bills this year, he is actually older than Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts this is Kyle Pitts' 3rd year in the NFL, for reference.
Isn't that crazy?
That's freaking wild. I did not realize how young Kyle Pitts was.
He was 19 years old when he got drafted.
That's freaking nuts, man. Good for him. But, like, damn. Like the dominant, that's just cool. And I just wanted to share that because I was like, that blew me away. And I was like, dang, I did not realize Kyle Pitts is still younger than like some of the rookies coming into the NFL right now.
Could you imagine coming into the NFL? You got drafted when you're 19, season starts, you're 20 years old, and
You can't even drink yet.
You can't drink. You can't celebrate. You can't do anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure you can.
Well,
you just
can.
can't.
Yeah, just close your eyes
Yeah.
a little bit when you see that. But could you imagine like all the shit that you got on Twitter as a 20-year-old for not performing in fantasy, or even 21-year-old you like getting a bunch of shit?
I don't think I would have been able to do it. Like I don't think I would have the mental fortitude, and it would be very, very like there's a lot of negative people. But then you also look and it's like Kyle Pitts' price is still super fucking high. So some people are still like everybody's still kind of rooting for him a little bit too. But that would be a lot for a young man to overcome. So kudos to him. I mean, good for him. But
it just goes to show you like the expectations that we put on him so young. It's hard to fathom sometimes. Like these are 21, 22-year-old guys out there still.
I looked at it was funny. So we're about to talk about running backs. I'm older than Joe Mixon. That feels weird to say.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
you're getting up there, man.
I know. I'm getting real old. I'm getting a little dusty. All right, Eddie. Let's go ahead and let's talk about some running backs. So let's bust, baby.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
First running back we are going to talk about John Taylor. Okay, so John Taylor I think is a really, really good candidate to talk about because very obviously everybody still loves him. He was the number 1 overall pick last year in every single redraft league. He was a bust last year, Yeti. He finishes RB 33, which is absolutely terrible. You know what? I will be the first to say this. I was a huge fan. I was so excited for Matt Ryan to come into this Colts offense this last season. I thought it was going to be great for John Taylor. I thought it was going to be great for Michael Pittman. I thought it was going to be able to open up the offense and everything was going to be great, and it was not. It was a train wreck. John Taylor, he struggled with an ankle injury for most of last season, which is one of the biggest reasons he kind of finished as poorly as he did. And now, Yeti, Anthony Richardson was drafted to the Colts with the 4th overall pick. Anthony Richardson, for those who do not know, is an incredibly athletic raw talent that they are going to have to do a lot of chiseling to harness that talent. But Anthony Richardson is incredibly fast. He's a good ball runner. So do you think that threatens John Taylor at all? And what are your thoughts on John Taylor? If you own him in a dynasty league, are you selling him? Are you looking to acquire him? Are you interested in a redraft league? Like, tell me what you're thinking about Johnny T, baby.
He's in a very interesting situation because, like you had mentioned, he had an offseason last year with his ankle injuries. And I think it's important to remember that this Colts organization was a complete shit show last year. Any way you want to spin it, they had Jeff Saturday as an interim head coach who shouldn't even be in the league coaching. It was cool to watch, but realistically, he shouldn't be a coach, right? So he endured a lot last season, not just injuries. There's a lot of things stacked up against him. Now he's going into a new offense this year under Shane Steichen from Philadelphia, who's studied under the head coach there in Philly. So we know what Philly likes to do, right? They are a very run heavy team. In fact, I think last year they led the league, or no, they had the 4th most carries in the league, and the year prior they led the league in carries. So that means a lot of volume for a guy who is still under 24 years old, who is only a year removed from being a top 10 running back. I think you're buying or you're holding JT. Is there concern with Anthony Richardson? I guess, but we don't even know if he's going to be the day 1 starter at this point. That could be Gardner Minshew.
Would you not?
You would think so, but I could see Minshew starting for the first few weeks. And honestly, even if Richardson is the starter, I'm not super concerned about Jonathan Taylor because he's still going to see at least 20 carries a game. He is a cowbell running back in this league, which is hard to find. And this offense is going to be running the ball. You would think with Anthony Richardson at the helm, even if he is starting, that they are going to want to run the ball to get him comfortable in the offense, right? Whether he's running it or Jonathan Taylor is. JT is still going to see the volume. Obviously, those carries around the goal line, they might dwindle a little. But if I'm still seeing 20 carries a game out of JT and those targets out of the backfield, I'm buying or I'm holding if I have them.
Yeah, I mean, he in weeks 10 through 13, when he was healthy, he was the RB3 overall. So that's a small window, but that just goes to show that, if he's healthy, and granted, like I said, there's a quarterback change involved. And there is, like I said, I think there are some people that are concerned about Richardson. I'm not, because Miles Sanders had 13 touchdowns in 2022, and that was with Jalen Hurts, right? So, and I'm not saying Miles Sanders was incredible, but because I think John Taylor is better than Miles Sanders, but I think that's just a comparison to show that no matter what, I think they're still going to run the ball. And very obviously, John Taylor is one of the best running backs in the league right now. So you play with the players you have, and he has a great running back. So let's utilize him. So I'm right now, though, Yeti, he is going for the 102 in Dynasty rookie drafts. So he's going the 102 plus like a sprinkle of something else, like a Tyler Boyd in a 102, like something not like that grand. So, I mean, what do you think? Like, if you own John Taylor, would you be selling him for the 102? And I know it's all subjective because team makeup can be kind of different, but like, do you think that that's fair value for him?
I think so. I mean, I think Bijan is clearly the RB1 in dynasty formats just because, he's a rookie and he's going to a good offense, yada, yada, yada. But I would happily, if I was buying JT and I had the 102, I would happily trade off the 102. I think that is fair value if I needed a running back, right?
Yeah.
But it just depends. If you have JT and you're set at running back, maybe look to get plus some, but I think at this point, a lot of people are going to try to play you into saying, oh, watch out for Anthony Richardson. He's going to steal some of the volume,
Yeah.
And if you're one of those guys that's trying to swindle a little bit, good for you. I hope it works. You should drop the trade below.
Yeah.
On our Twitter.
Yo, I'm all about swindling a little bit. So don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I like a good swindle. Okay. I think I would buy John Taylor. I really do. I'm not concerned with him, so I'll mark him as a buy for me. I think he will still, barring any health issues, which we don't predict or root for, he'll be there and he'll be good. So I'm not writing him off. I know a lot of people might. He certainly is not probably going to be the 101 this year, right? And he was last year, but I think that he'll still finish as a top 10 running back if he can stay healthy. So
since you bring up like where he's going right now, in best ball formats, Jonathan Taylor is the fourth running back off the board. That's behind McCaffrey, Eckler, and Bijan.
I could see I could see Taylor getting in front of McCaffrey. I could, because McCaffrey is getting a little bit older. I think that, we even saw Elijah Mitchell still had usage on the 49ers last year, and I think he could vulture a couple touches that could lower his touchdown percentage just a little bit. So, because they want to keep him healthy,
Right.
So I could see that. I could see Taylor getting over CMC, but I think it's right within the realm of where he belongs. So I'm fine.
Agreed. Yep.
Next up here, Travis Etienne. Yeti, let's talk about him. Because I don't know where you go from here as an Etienne holder. I really don't. And I'm genuinely curious as to what you think, because I believe you do own Etienne. Is that correct in a dynasty format?
Well, this is interesting because I did own Travis Etienne, and I was somebody who sold him prior to the draft, and I am ecstatic.
Do you have the script? Do you have the NFL script yet?
Yeah, I saw that Jacksonville, they were looking for a running back. I saw they were going to get Tank Bigsby in the third round, so I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna sell Travis Etienne now before everybody else finds out. But
he was one of the most sought after running backs in the offseason. Like, he was for dynasty purposes, he was certainly somebody that a lot of people were buying on. And then, like you mentioned, Tank Bigsby, 88th overall pick in the draft, went to the Jags. So certainly stirred up some controversy and certainly probably hurt Etienne's value quite a bit with that pick, I would presume.
Yeah. And I have Travis Etienne as a sell. Obviously, I mentioned that I had Etienne in our Dynasty League of Record. I sold Travis Etienne. I need wide receivers, so I got Scary Terry and a 2024 first. That is probably going to be top 5. So I thought it was fair value at that time, and I still think it's a steal.
Looking at it now.
Yeah. But my reason for selling Travis Etienne is he is currently the 7th running back on Keep Trade Cut. his value is the highest that it's going to get.
It's the 104 right now for those that do
104, yep. And so he didn't finish as a top 10 running back last year. And this was with him being the workhorse in that offense. Now they add Tank Bigsby, who, like I mentioned, he has a draft capital to warrant some carries in that offense. Got drafted in the 3rd round out of Auburn. And Tank Bigsby was a productive running back in college. He's no slouch, and he's kind of that James Robinson type of guy, where he's just going to pound the rock. And I firmly believe that Tank Bigsby is going to carve out a role in this offense pretty quickly. And there's evidence to prove that Doug Peterson, he has a history of running a running back committee or splitting the carries at least. Last year was the most carries a running back has had in a Doug Peterson offense with Travis Etienne at 255. Yeah. So he wasn't a coach in 21, but in 2020, he coached Philly, obviously. They had Miles Sanders, who had 192 total touches. Miles Sanders again in 2019, who had 229. And then you go to 2018, Josh Adams was their leading running back, who had 127 touches, followed by Blunt, who had 181. So there's one more, 2016, Ryan Matthews. He had 168 touches. So there's evidence that proves that Doug Peterson does not like having a workhorse guy. I think Travis Etienne was a product of the environment last year with no one really around him to push him out of that lead, that workhorse type of load. And another interesting piece, I'll leave you with this. I thought it was very interesting that JaMycal Hasty outplayed Travis Etienne in that playoff game against the Chiefs. If you look at the snap count, JaMycal Hasty played a lot more than Travis Etienne, which I thought was kind of interesting.
And it might just be he maybe tweet something. I don't know. Right? I don't think we're going to know. But that's the time where you play your stars, right? Because you're at the end of the line. You made it this far. So yeah, that was interesting. I have him as a sell as well. I think very clearly he is his value is probably as high as it will ever be, and I think you probably. It's like playing the stock market a little bit, to be honest with you. I think you sold it when he was at his peak, right? Because he's already lost value because they did sign or draft Tank Bigsby. He's still going for the 104. And I think if you have him and you can get even like a 105 or a 106, I would probably actually do that for me, because I would rather take a shot at one of those 4 wide receivers, or even maybe Gibbs if he's around, than hold ETN, because I don't think he is going to. It sounds like it's going to be a split backfield. It looks like it based on all everything that you said, and then you look at it from an analytical view, and you don't draft somebody in the 3rd round and expect them not to at least be on the field. You know what I mean? So I agree with you. I have Travis Etienne as a sell, and if looking at next year, I don't know. Do you have it pulled up as far as where he is being drafted at in a I can't think of the league name.
Dynasty format?
No, in the best ball format, excuse me.
Oh, best ball, Travis Etienne is the 12th running back off the board right now.
That's nuts. I would not touch him at the 12th. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I do think it's going to be a split backfield, and I think that's going to severely limit his upside. So I'm out. I think it's interesting. A lot of people on Twitter that I've interacted with about Travis Etienne, they said that with Tank Bigsby coming in, that's going to keep Etienne fresh. He's going to be involved in the passing game a lot more. But I find it interesting because Travis Etienne, last year he had 45 targets in an offense where he was the lead guy. But you look at his numbers in college, he averaged about the same amount of targets. So it's like, where is his upside for receiving? Where it's not there. I think really he's kind of capped. So yeah, not a good look for him. And as you mentioned, Peterson will run 2 running backs, and that is concerning. Mm-hmm. So I'm out on Travis Etienne. What about Isiah Pacheco, Yeti? Isiah Pacheco? Because
running back.
What's that?
The running back on crack.
It's funny. I actually have in my notes here, I said, quote, Pacheco is super fun to watch. The guy looks like he's huffing bath salts and on crack at the same time. He hits the hole hard and is showing no signs of slowing down. I have that word for word in my notes here. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that he is on some kind of drugs every time the ball gets in his hands.
Man, he runs the ball like it's his last time touching a football. every single time, man.
Every time. He's super fun to watch. I love watching him. He's fucking nuts. So if you don't know who Isiah Pacheco is, you're probably living under a rock, but he is the running back for the Chiefs. He was a rookie 7th round pick last season. So, which I think a lot of people, in the offseason before the draft, before the NFL draft, a lot of people were like, there's no way. The Chiefs are going to draft a running back. They're going to, he was drafted in the 7th round. There's no way they're going to stick with him. But I posed the question back. I said, why would they draft a running back? They hit gold in the 7th round. They hit a guy who very obviously they believe in because he's on the damn field. Why would they draft a running back in the 3rd round? Because it's better draft capital? Who gives a shit about the draft capital? If you hit on a Tom Brady in the 6th round, you got Tom Brady. You know what I mean? So why move on from that? And I'm not saying Pacheco and Brady are the same, but I'm saying for conversational purposes, Pacheco was getting it done. He was getting it done. So he finishes the RB34 last season. And I think, that doesn't tell the full story of who and what Pacheco is, because when he finally started to see the field, I think he was pretty dang electric, and a lot of people were pretty excited for him. So do you share the excitement and the now buzz around Isiah Pacheco because the Chiefs did not draft a running back?
Honestly, I don't. Pacheco is currently the running back 26 on Keep Trade Cut. So I think this might be the highest his value will get, honestly.
I agree.
Last year, like you had mentioned, RB34 in PPR formats. And I just think he's priced way too high, honestly. I look at Isiah Pacheco as a guy who is very touchdown dependent every week just because Jerick McKinnon is there. Jerick McKinnon is going to be limiting Pacheco's upside every single week. And the Kansas City offense is kind of, besides Kelsey, is kind of like, whose week is it? Because one week it's going to be Pacheco, the next week it's going to be McKinnon. That's how their wide receiver room is too. But I think it's important to note that with McKinnon coming back to Kansas City, that McKinnon gets all the targets in the red zone. You look at the stats last year, McKinnon had 22 targets in the red zone. Pacheco only had 1. McKinnon had 20 carries in the red zone. Pacheco had 31. So there's a clear split there between the two in the red zone, which matters, right? That limits Pacheco's upside for touchdowns and obviously those targets.
And there's probably people out there that are saying, the argument, it was his rookie year. They're still getting him ingrained in this offense. And I hear those people, but I agree with you, Yeti. Them re-signing Jerick McKinnon is a very clear indicator that I think Pacheco's probably at his peak. I think it's going to be a 1-2 backfield. I think Pacheco will kind of be a 1-2 punch to McKinnon, but I expect McKinnon to be involved with the passing game much like he was last year. And that severely limits Pacheco's upside. Right now, Pacheco's going for the 202. I actually had Isiah Pacheco in our Dynasty League, and I sold him for the 201 this last year because for everything that we just discussed. He is a hard sell for me. I don't think his value is going to get a whole lot better than it is right now. And I would be looking to capitalize on that while I can.
Yeah. And, it's funny that we both said that Isiah Pacheco is he's a crackhead or however you want to put it when he
super
runs the
fun
ball.
to watch.
And he paid the price. This offseason, he had surgery twice on his shoulder. So I don't know. Obviously, it sounds like everything is okay. Like he's going to be back for training camp. But those shoulder injuries, they're not very fun to recover from when you're a running back, and especially if you get hit right, week 10, poof, there goes your shoulder, just like at Dalvin Cook. I'm not comparing him to Dalvin Cook, but
Well, hey, yeah, you said it, so let's talk about it. Dalvin Cook made our list today, so he was one of the guys that I don't think he voted on the Twitter profile. Was it him and Joe Mixon, I think? So we'll talk about Joey here in a minute. But Dalvin Cook, I think there's a lot of conversation to be had around Cook because the league right now, it's the offseason. There's not a whole lot to talk about. And Dalvin Cook's probably one of the headlight or the mainstream NFL conversation. Dalvin Cook will probably be let go by the Vikings. It is all but actually official. But it's been heavily talked about, and it seems like it's pretty much coming to its end, and the Vikings are just waiting to cut him. He was the RB11 last year, and he's not in a good situation. So what do you do with him? Because in my mind, yeah, he gets cut, right? It becomes Alexander Madison. And Madison is probably a very good own for those that have stashed him as a backup in Dynasty. There are other unrestricted free agent running backs that are currently sitting on the market. Let's name some. Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott, and now potentially Dalvin Cook. Like, I'm not saying all those other running backs that I just mentioned are as good as Dalvin Cook, but they're certainly usable NFL running backs. The tread on the tires is starting to wear on all of them, but they're still there, and they're still in the league, and they're still going to probably be picked up at some point, whether it's in the middle of the season or not. I don't think this bodes well for Dalvin Cook at all. I think, in fact, it's somewhat alarming, in my opinion, because he gets let go, and then that's just another big name running back that's now sitting there on waivers or on free agency waiting for a pickup. What are you thinking?
It's almost like when we bring up Dalvin Cook, we need to have different versions of Dalvin Cook, because it all depends on what happens, right? Is he going to is he going to restructure his contract with Minnesota? B, is he going to get cut and then go to a rumored potential spot in Miami? Or C, which is another potential landing spot that's kind of been rumored lately, is Dallas. What if he goes to Dallas? So it's like, those are the three possibilities I thought about when I was coming up with my notes for Dalvin Cook. And it's like, okay, if he stays with Minnesota, we know what his role is going to look like. He's probably going to split carries with Alexander Madison, and he's going to get the targets out of the backfield. That's best case scenario, which is what you can probably expect from Dalvin Cook, right? He's an older running back. He started to lose a step. I mean, you can look at his numbers and say, whoa. You know, he's still
27.
put up crazy stats. Yeah, he's going to be 28 years old when the season starts. He started to lose a step, but he's getting targets out of the backfield, so that's very enticing for PPR. If he goes to Miami, I think it's going to be the same situation. Committee backfield.
I think it's going to be, even if he goes to the Cowboys, I think it's still going to be a committee with Pollard.
Yeah.
So no matter what, I think his situation is his ceiling has been far and done. It's no longer as high as it used to be. He's going for the 205 right now in dynasty leagues, which feels just like, if you would have sold him last year, you probably could have got a first round pick this year, like at the beginning of the year. Now, like, just where he's at and kind of the situation that he's in, 205. You selling him? Are you selling him for somebody like Mims? Like, is it time to move on from him, or would you buy him at the 205? Would you take the risk at the 205 and say, yeah, I think Dalvin Cook could get me another year, maybe two. If you're running back dependent, I'm buying that at 205. What are you doing?
If you need a running back and you're looking to contend this year, I'm buying. If I own Dalvin Cook, I'm either holding for this year or I'm looking for a pick next year. I would take a high second for next year, or I would take obviously a low first if that's available.
Yeah, I just don't think you will. I mean, most people, like, if you're paying attention to football in the offseason, you got to know this is coming, right?
Yeah.
Or the rumor, it holds a little bit of ground, so it kind of makes you're standing on shaky ground, so to speak. So yeah, I would probably sell him. I'd be fine moving him. I think you know what happens if he doesn't get picked up until week 4 when a running back goes down and he becomes like a Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, but less great. You know, his value could be as high as it could be right now, and if you could be left holding the bomb that's about to explode and be worth nothing potentially. So I'd probably sell him. Now I would take if I was a running back 2 away, I'd potentially take the risk at the 205. Or even
because you're holding out hope that he lands in a situation where he can become the RB1, right? Yeah. Or you're looking at a veteran guy who could possibly get hurt. You look at a guy like Derrick Henry. Knock on wood, I don't want him to get hurt, but what if he gets hurt like week 3? They signed Dalvin Cook. Boom, immediate RB1 in that offense.
Sure. And that's almost kind of, you know, we don't root for injuries, but if you're a Dalvin Cook owner, that's kind of where you're at potentially. So let's talk about J.K. Dobbins, somebody who was injured and has faced injury for quite a while now. J.K. Dobbins, running back for the Ravens, he finished his RB 48 last year. He came off of a major knee injury from the 2021 season, so 2 seasons ago. And I think a lot of people were expecting Dobbins to enter last season in 2022 with guns blazing. Unfortunately, he did not. He did not. It did not happen. He re-injured his knee on week 6, and he hit the IR until week 14. So he missed a chunk of the season again. What do you do with J.K. Dobbins? Because he didn't really, the passing game was non-existent for him. Did not see any of the passing down work. The entire team last year struggled with injury. So if you want to chalk it up to that, let's make that argument. I'm here for it. Does Dobbins? What do you do with him, Yeti? What do you do with this guy who has not really done anything since he's entered the league? He's had quite a bit of hype surrounding him, and he has not produced.
You sell him to me. That's what you do, because I'm buying.
Okay. You're buying, baby.
I want J.K. Dobbins in every dynasty league that I'm in, or even redraft purposes. I'm taking J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins, he is a full year removed from his knee surgery. And we saw what J.K. Dobbins can do when he came back healthy for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
He can be an asshole to Tyler Huntley.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did see that too on Twitter, right?
Yeah, when they said, why didn't he give me the ball? He took it for himself and cost him the game. So he can be an asshole, yeah.
Yeah. Fucking Dobbins is an asshole now. Sorry, guys.
You're still buying him, though.
Yeah, I'm still buying him, man.
Okay.
Like I said, there's that viral tweet about him with a gimp in the early portion of the season. And then
that's just his leg fell asleep. That's all that happened there.
Yeah, right. And then he had surgery to clear up his knee again. Came back for the last few weeks of the season, and he looked like J.K. Dobbins. He looked like the guy that we were used to seeing. Average over 100 rushing yards per game the last 3 weeks of the season. And if you look at his numbers during those games, he was a very efficient running back. He was top 5 in missed tackles or forced missed tackles. His elusive numbers were looking good. He was top 20 for those. I'm buying him.
Okay.
New offense too. Todd Monken comes back to the NFL from Georgia. Todd Monken likes to run the ball. He ran at an average 54% of the time for Georgia. I like that.
Do you think that contradicts though what Lamar has come out and said, where they're throwing the ball like a mother? And I might have added the mother part, but Lamar he did come out and he said, he was asked by reporters, what is this offense going to look like? And he said, I'm throwing it a lot more. So does that have any concern for you or bear any sort of any fear from the running perspective? Because traditionally this Ravens team has been a very run-centric team. Lamar Jackson, he's a running quarterback. We have seen him do it pretty consistently. He's starting to struggle with some health. They obviously signed him to a big deal. J.K. Dobbins struggled with health. Then they're a run-heavy team. Does that bear any fear in you that perhaps they're going to start throwing the ball more? And where I want to go with this conversation is they also added Zay Flowers, right? And they also have OBJ. So they have a lot of, I don't want to say top tier weapons, but they certainly have some weapons on this offense to move the ball down the field through the air. Does that concern you?
I mean, you got to run the ball to set up the pass, in my opinion, right? And Zay Flowers is going to be that guy that takes the top off the defense, open up more lanes, whereas OBJ is going to be that possessional type of guy. I think this offense is going to be very fun to watch, but that doesn't mean that J.K. Dobbins can't feast himself. There's reports that came out, I think, yesterday or today that Gus Edwards, he's still not in training camp. He was dealing with an injury, and he's still not right. You look at that backfield, it's J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and that's it. So I like J.K. Dobbins in this offense if he is the workhorse type of guy.
He's going around the 109, 110.
Mm-hmm.
So would you trade? This is all hypothetical. You have J.K. Dobbins. Or no, you have the 109, and you pick. We're going to say Zay Flowers is there. Would you trade Zay Flowers straight up for J.K. Dobbins?
If I needed a running back, yeah. I would.
Would you trade Jordan Addison straight up for J.K. Dobbins?
If I needed a running back, yeah.
Okay. Would you trade Quentin Johnson straight up for J.K.?
That one's an easier yes for me. Yep.
Okay. And would you trade the last one, of course, Jackson Smith and the Jigba?
Yeah. I would.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, all those guys you could have a medley of any of those guys kind of going around that area. So I wanted to play that game with you. But it sounds like you're in on JK over any of those guys. So I respect it. I still have fear. I do. I'm a fearful man. J.K. Dobbins has never done it in the NFL, and I don't know if he'll hit that. So I think if he gets hurt again this year, his value is going to tank drastically. And I respect your opinion. If you want to buy him, Yeti, I would sell him to you at the 109 for any of those players. But that is just me. So, okay. Last running back we're going to talk about today. Sir Joseph Mixon. I don't think he was ever knighted. I just kind of gave him that.
Probably not knighted anymore.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say after everything that he's done, he's probably not going to ever be knighted. His chances are pretty much ruined. His future, in fact, is pretty cloudy, if we're being honest. He's in some legal stuff. He's got some legal stuff going on, Yeti. So he pled not guilty back in April. Had something to do with him pointing a gun at a woman, I believe. Probably shouldn't do that. Probably really just shouldn't point a gun at anybody, but definitely does not look good when it's a woman and you're an NFL player. So that could be a problem. He finishes RB10 this last season, and the Bengals, they drafted a gentleman by the name of Chase Brown. Not to be confused with Jamar Chase. There's a lot of Chases going on in this team, and it's quite mind-boggling. But Chase Brown, he's a running back drafted in the 5th round. Samaje Perine is no longer around on this team. So they did draft this young man, and I still believe that Mixon is a starter for this team. Barring any sort of legal consequences, it will be Mixon. It is his backfield. It has been his backfield. He has been the sole running back in that backfield unless he's been injured. We saw Samaje Perine come and help out when Joe Mixon was not healthy, and Samaje Perine actually looked really damn good. So Chase Brown doesn't do it for me necessarily. But I do want to point this out to you, Yeti. Joe Mixon, his contract goes to the end of 2024. So this season and next season, he's slated to still be around. But the rumor is that the Bengals may be asking Joe Mixon to take a pay cut. He could be one of those casualties, the cap casualties that has kind of happened with some of these other running backs like Ezekiel Elliott, for example, and potentially Dalvin Cook. So what do you do with Mixon? Like, he's got one more year of value. Do you think it really just depends on where your dynasty team is at? Like if you kind of look at your team and a third of the way through the year or even a quarter way through the year, you realize you're probably not going to make it. You probably should just sell him while you can because you're not going to get much more out of him. Like, what do you do? Is that where you are, or what are you thinking?
Honestly, you read my notes for the most part on Joe Mixon, but at this current point in time, I'm buying Joe Mixon. He is the 27th running back on Keep Trade Cut, so his value is very, very low. It's the
202, 203-ish area.
Yeah, and if I needed a running back, if I was a contender for this year or next year, or both, I guess, I am buying Joe Mixon. As you alluded to, Joe Mixon is the workhorse running back in this offense. This is a top 5 offense, no matter how you look at it with the weapons that they have on this offense. And Joe Mixon can get it done. Obviously, there are legal issues, but we haven't heard anything as far as a court date. We haven't heard any NFL penalties that are coming down on Joe Mixon. And I honestly think he would be silly not to take a pay cut for Cincinnati, because if he doesn't, he's going to get cut, and then it's on to the next running back. I think he will be taking a pay cut with all things considered. And you mentioned Samaje Perine, who was a very, very, very serviceable running back in this offense. He's no longer with Cincinnati. He's in Denver now. So the only competition he has is Chase Brown, who I'm not saying Chase Brown is a slouch, but he's not going to force his hand and take carries from Joe Mixon. So if Joe Mixon is going for a 203, 202, and I need a running back, I'm drafting Joe Mixon. I still believe he can get it done on a weekly basis. And he was a top 10 in targets last year overall and in the red zone, which is very promising for his upside.
Yeah, I agree. Joe Mixon, he's somebody that let me ask you this. You know, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, they're both kind of in the same area as far as value is concerned. You taking Joe Mixon over Dalvin Cook? Is that fair to say? Okay.
Yep. 100%,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Dalvin Cook does, and I do agree with you. I think Joe Mixon. You look at this team and how close they are to being like. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl, right? Like they're a team that very recently they went to Super Bowl. They can still do it. That offense is still the same as it was 2 years ago when they were there for the most part. Obviously, their line has changed a little bit, but their specialty players are all the same. And so why would you not try and get one last shot at it while you can? So I agree. I think they'll figure it out. Mixon will be the guy this year. I will say this, though, before we move on from Joe Mixon. I think there could be a chance he gets cut after the season. Because you look at how much they're going to have to pay him next year as well, and I think that he could be one of those cap casualties after the season unless he does take a pretty good pay cut, which he could. But I say that because I don't think he'll get re-signed. The Bengals next year could draft a running back in the upcoming draft to try and get them get a better running back for themselves because Mixon's not going to be around a whole hell of a lot longer. So I say that with caution. And if you're not a team that's going to contend, I highly recommend you try and move them while you can. And that's it, Yeti. That is all the running back conversation that we have. We have a couple questions, like I mentioned, that were asked that we had just kind of had to put on the back burner for time reasons, and we're going to get to them today. So are you ready to do it? You ready to get down to the mail?
Let's do it, man.
Let's do it, baby.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Mail!
Was that? I don't know how it was for you. I hope it was great. Anyway. You're muted there, my friend. I cannot hear you.
Oh, shit. Damn. I was muted. But I was saying, last week I listened to you, try your timing.
Yeah.
And it was off quite a bit. So
wasn't off quite a bit. Scotty's a freaking liar. He said he was going to make me all beautiful and great.
Listen live, though, to be fair.
Oh, okay. So it was off live. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right. First question.
So much our producer can do live, right?
That's fair. Yellow HC asks us, Dameon Pierce or all of the picks in 2025. So that would be a first, a second, a third, and a fourth round pick, all likely middle round picks. Are you taking the picks? Or are you taking Dameon Pierce, baby?
Give me the picks, man.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
Like Dameon Pierce is probably he's not going to get replaced, but him and Devin Singletary are kind of the same running back in that offense.
Yeah.
If I'm getting a first, man.
Value. Yeah, a first, a second, a third, and a fourth. You're getting all of somebody's picks.
Yeah.
I would be selling that for that 100%. 100%. Yeah. No, I think
accept right now.
Yeah, go do it, Yellow HC, before the other person realizes how silly that is. Papa Nutty in a Superflex Dynasty. I actually really like this question. I think this question is going to be a great conversation piece for us here. Papa Nutty asks us, in a Superflex Dynasty League, Yeti, are you more interested in DJ Moore or Deebo Samuel? We talked about Deebo a little bit earlier, but we did not talk about DJ Moore earlier. Which one would you rather have?
I think I would much rather have DJ Moore at this point. I don't know why it took me a second to spit that out. I was kind of thinking about something
You're thinking
else.
about like the past and how Deebo Samuel was like the RB2 on the year.
Yeah, I think I just had some flashbacks. But honestly, I'm taking DJ Moore. I earlier in this episode, so go
reverse
go back to
like
our news
50 minutes ago.
Yeah, go back to like 20 minutes around this podcast. But I stated that Deebo Samuel, he's getting up there in age. He's dealing with injuries. His role
Scooby.
His role dwindled when we saw Christian McCaffrey join this offense, and then we saw Elijah Mitchell finally get healthy in this offense too. And Brandon Ayuk has kind of emerged as the wide receiver one, if you will, in this offense.
Yeah.
So I think Samuel's value is gonna tank pretty hard if it hasn't already. And DJ Moore is in an offense where he is the guy.
This is arguably the best offense that DJ Moore may have ever been in.
Yeah,
because he's had a rotating quarterback every single year since he's been in the league. He is still managed in his 5 years in the league. I think 3 out of the 5 years he's hit 1,100 yards or higher, and he's now found himself a home in which hopefully they can get it done. So I'm excited for the Bears. Honestly, they're a team that I don't have super high expectations on, but I think they're going to be fun, and I think they could make some noise this year. And I think DJ Moore, them acquiring DJ Moore, they beefed up their defense quite a bit. I'm excited for this offense, and I know a lot of people hate Justin Fields, and they say he can't throw the ball worth a shit. I'd be willing to take DJ Moore because right now we don't even know who the 49ers quarterback is to try and make any sort of arguments. So give me DJ Moore every day. Mm-hmm. Next question comes from Sufficient Ninja. He's in a 12-team, or she, I don't know. Ninjas can be girls, probably. They are in a 12-team Superflex PPR league. And they want to know Trevor Lawrence and CeeDee Lamb or 2024 mid-second round picks, Garrett Wilson, Trey Lance, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. This is pretty easy for me.
Go for it.
I'm taking the picks and Garrett Wilson and Lance and JSN. That's a haul, man. And in a 12-team league, I'm doing that every single day. I hope you have, I don't know what your quarterback situation looks like, and I think that's really where this conversation goes, because Trey Lance could end up sitting on the bench this year. And Trevor Lawrence is kind of slated to be, I want to say he's probably like 8 or 9 as far as in a best ball where he's going. He's doing pretty well, right? And CeeDee Lamb is a top-tier elite wide receiver that holds a lot of value, but I think Garrett Wilson could be every bit as good as CeeDee Lamb this year. So I'm going to take the picks.
I don't know. This one's a little harder for me because I'm in the camp that Trey Lance isn't going to be a starter in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And I'm also in the camp that Garrett Wilson is very overrated. So with that being said, I think you have to go T-Law and CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion.
Okay.
Lamb, you're getting a top 10 wide receiver. Trevor Lawrence, you're getting a top 10 quarterback for at least the next couple years for both of these guys.
There is some risk, and I understand that.
Sure.
But I think Wilson, I don't agree with you on that end. I think Wilson, I think he could see some regression from where his value is last year. I'm not saying he is on that pedestal, but I still think Garrett Wilson will be a very good and usable wide receiver. I'm not going to say he's going to be as good as he was last year because there's more competition in that offense, and he's playing with a much better quarterback. So I'm not writing Garrett Wilson saying he's going to finish as a top 5 wide receiver because I don't believe that. But I think he's usable. JSN is certainly very enticing. 2 2024 mid-second rounders and Trey Lance. I mean, you could probably spin a Trey Lance and one of those mid-second rounders right as soon as you make the trade and still get like a Geno Smith or somebody if you really needed a quarterback. So you could probably move some of those pieces still and come out on top. And for that reason, I would do that. But I understand where you're coming from completely because you're getting 2 guys who are looking like Sherlocks for a while. Mm-hmm. But it's where's their ceiling, and that's where I think you could potentially get a higher ceiling on the flip side. But you are taking more risk.
Yep.
Last question comes from Tank Buddy. This is an odd question, especially because their name is Tank Buddy. But they ask, would you rather go to heaven or become a ghost on Earth after you die?
Man, I think I'd rather go to heaven because you're up there and you can see everything. You can look down and just kind of see how everything at one time. You have more of a vision. Whereas if you're a ghost, like you're living your everyday life, right? But people can't see you. You can't talk to people. You can like leave notes and do funky shit. But
that's why I'm going to take the ghost.
Oh,
I'm here to fuck shit up. And if I can do that for eternity, I will do it. Like, that's fine. Like, yeah, no, I get I completely, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to give me backlash for this. I am going to own that because going to heaven is very easily the correct choice here. But do you know how fun it would be to just fuck with people as a ghost? Yeah. And that's what I want to do. And if I do that for eternity, that's fine. You get to go through shit.
True.
You get to sit there in someone's living room while they're talking to each other and they just don't know. I'm trying to learn some secrets.
Do you think you would stay in one spot though, like as a ghost, like because historically, like ghosts stay in one spot, like.
I don't know the rules of ghouls yet. I don't know how this works with ghost law, but I will say if I had the ability to move around, I would. Now, if I was stuck in one particular location for the rest of my life, no. I would not do that because I would get tired of the painting on the fucking wall and I'd be like, God damn it, I wish this family would take this off. But if I could go travel around and do some ghost shit, like even if it's in one, like if I'm stuck in a neighborhood or like a cul-de-sac, I'd probably still do that. I would like I would be spooky and I would fuck with all the kids and I would terrorize them and that would bring me joy. So I would be doing that. But if I am stuck in one like one place for the rest of my life, I can't see myself committing to that.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm at. It It would suck. But that's it, Yeti. Those are all the questions that we have today. And we appreciate it. Yeah, great questions. That was odd, but great. We appreciate it, everybody. We appreciate all of your guys' continued support. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Go give us a follow on all the stuff. Yeti, let's get the hell out of here, baby. We
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.